Have you come up with an idea for an IT product? Great! Just don't think that's already half the journey. This is only the beginning. At this point, most people make the same mistake. They start spending time, money, effort, and energy before they've figured out who actually needs it and whether it's needed at all. This video is a checklist I would go through if I were launching an IT product from scratch today. No illusions, no motivation speeches, only things that actually work. Hi, my name is Mark. I've been doing custom IT development for over 6 years now. And now I'm actively developing my own studio where we create mobile apps, Telegram games, web applications, websites, tokens, and smart contracts. So if you were looking for a contractor, there's a link to my contact info in the description. Don't forget to also subscribe to the Telegram group where I share some of my projects and news. And in this video, I'll explain how to approach launching a product so you don't waste your money and time. Start with the most important thing, demand. The first thing you need to understand is nobody cares about your idea. It's harsh, but that's the truth. You have to find someone who might be interested in your idea yourself and then get them interested by explaining why your product exists at all and how it can help them. It's important to understand that your job is not to run around sharing your idea with friends and family or to collect feedback from people you know. In 99% of cases, their feedback will be positive, simply because they want to support you and don't want to damage their relationship with you, which will ultimately have a negative impact on your IT product. What we really need is criticism and genuine feedback. We don't need them to sugarcoat things or speak in vague, abstract terms. That's not what we need, not what we're looking for. You need to show your project to a stranger, someone you don't know at all, who just happened to come across your website or your unique selling proposition. That person is in fact your very first potential user. Let's say you have an idea that is guaranteed to become successful and popular. Everyone needs it, really. Well, we get it. So, what are your next steps to check if that's really the case? First, create a landing page. Don't overthink it. Don't make it complicated. Make a simple landing page or a mini app where you show what your product is for, what its strengths are, and what problems it solves for potential users. And if you suddenly don't have programming skills and don't want to spend money at the initial stage when you're just testing demand, then just make a simple PowerPoint presentation. I think you can handle that, and it will be free for you. Second, your goal is to get real feedback and, if possible, actual clients. You don't need just website views or forced feedback. To do this, create a form to collect contact information or even set up a pre-order right away. This way, we can really make sure that the user who clicked on your site, scrolled through it, and said they're interested in the product will actually become your user and your customer in the future. Or, if it's a pre-order, then they'll become a customer right now. And third, we launch advertising. This way, you can not only test your idea, but also build your unit economics and understand how much a real user will cost you, because frankly, this will be very helpful for you in the future, whether it's for communicating with investors or for your own marketing campaign. But that's not all. The fourth point is so-called customer development interviews. Reach out to interested buyers for a call or message them on social media. Your task is to ask them leading questions, find out what features they really need, how much they're willing to pay, why this interested them, and so on. Yes, you could say this is the job of a marketer or a targeting specialist. But if you don't understand how it works yourself, no marketer, no targeting specialist, no one will be able to help you. No matter how much you pay them, you need to know your startup or IT product perfectly yourself, or else fully delegate it to those who will know it inside out. But remember one very, very important thing that will be useful to you in the future. The app is only needed by you. No matter what anyone tells you, everyone here is after your money, and the business itself is only needed by you. Also, if possible, make a pitch deck for your project. This is a presentation document where you talk about your product, the unit economics, which, as we discussed above, you should already know, the functionality and its usefulness. Remember, your goal is not to present to people who are interested or connected to you, but specifically to those who don't know you or aren't interested in your product. I mean, they won't sugarcoat their feedback. Find entrepreneur meetups in your city, startup events, or some kind of forums. Speak at these events, or simply, while meeting people, show them your presentation and tell them about your project. But remember, your goal is to collect real feedback. Often people will sugarcoat things, leave things unsaid, or try to smooth things over so as not to seem rude. That's why you should set boundaries right away. Say that you need honest feedback, even if it sounds really harsh. If the idea really sucks, let your conversation partner tell you that directly. This will save you a ton of time, effort, energy, and money. And if they actually like the idea, to lock that in, for example, sell them a pre-order, or get their contact information. For example, one of my clients who was developing a fintech product bought tickets to Dubai for a conference at the last minute so he could go there, actively network with people, present his project to them, and gather information. This way, he realized that people actually needed his project, but it needed a few changes, which later led to higher revenue than he could have expected. Yes, he spent quite a lot of money on that trip, but in the end, it all paid off very, very well. Thanks to real feedback, he was able to understand what kind of app users actually needed, which features from his plans were necessary, and which ones, on the contrary, were missing from his initial value proposition. And as a result, thanks to this, according to our modest estimates, his app started generating 60% more revenue than it would have if he had stuck with his original main value proposition, which would have excluded those 60% of people. I know I've been talking for quite a while, but please understand, this is very important, and for some reason, no one talks about this on YouTube. Well, almost no one. And yet, this is the very moment when 90% of startups or businesses die before they've even really been born. And I'm not just saying this out of the blue. I've launched a business myself that failed. It was a clothing brand. My idea was that the product was unique. There simply wasn't anything like it on the market. I thought I'd send it out to bloggers. The bloggers would pick up on the idea. Users would see that the hoodie was unique, and everyone would start buying it up. Then 1 million and 1 billion wouldn't be far off. I think you can already guess what the result was. I still have 40 units of unsold stock sitting in my closet. Nobody wants them, not even at cost price. A good example of an approach involving customer development and information gathering is games on Steam. I think you know what that is. They create pages, write attractive descriptions of the game, make trailers, talk about all the features, and most importantly, they collect wish lists. This way, developers can understand whether anyone actually wants their game at all. Of course, if you're a blogger with 1 million followers, things are just a little easier for you. But even their products can fail, as strange as that may sound. And precisely because they don't collect feedback, they create the product blindly, and then it turns out that, once again, nobody needs it. For example, this happened with a Telegram game for a blogger we were developing a game for who had 5 million subscribers on YouTube. He was really passionate about his idea, didn't listen to feedback, and just wanted to make exactly what he had written in the technical specification. And so after a successful test, you can finally move on to development. If you already have the money, don't worry about it. Reach out to a well-coordinated team, for example, mine, and it's important, contact teams that can handle the entire cycle, from UX and design to code and testing. That way, you'll not only save yourself money and time, but the project will turn out better. Much better. Very often, it happened that my clients would order the design separately from some other designer, and it's always the same story. The designer creates for themselves, they make it look beautiful, but they have no idea how the application will actually be built. And yes, you see a beautiful picture, but then when this picture goes to the developers, they'll be cursing you, the designer, and 3 generations ahead, because the design is full of gaps and flaws, and the designer simply doesn't understand what will be done with their product or how it will be transferred into a mobile app, website, web application, Telegram game, and so on. That's why in practice it's much better to give the project to a single team that will handle the entire development cycle from start to finish. That's exactly why I work with my own designers, animators, developers, testers, analysts, and so on. Yes, I could have saved money and found some outside freelancer for this task, but then the quality would have suffered. We would have taken longer to do everything and, in fact, earned less. Yes, so I also think about my own earnings. Of course, there's also a second option, to build a team completely from scratch. But believe me, if you have no management experience, if you don't have a lot of money, if you don't have experience in developing IT products, it's better not to get involved. Really, it's better not to get involved. It will come back to bite you very quickly. You'll lose money, time, and a lot of effort and energy. Believe me, I have my own studio. I know exactly what I'm talking about. By the way, don't forget to subscribe to my Telegram group. There are sometimes interesting or useful posts there. Now let's take a look at what the process of working with any studio or agency looks like. You need to clearly understand where you need to be involved in the development process and where you can relax a bit and not stress yourself out over it. Moreover, if it turns out that the team you're currently negotiating with or were thinking of negotiating with doesn't fulfill any of these points, then you should definitely run away from them. Run to me. Again, I'll be explaining using my own studio as an example because I understand how it works from the inside. But I think that for my competitors and other developers, things are more or less the same. But it all starts with a technical specification. This is a Google Doc or a Notion file where all the mechanics, design, and the entire project are described. For example, here's how it works in my case. At the very beginning, the client and I have a call where we discuss technical details, budget, deadlines, design, how everything should work, the mechanics, and we even manage to talk about life, hobbies, and families. After that, based on my experience, I consult you and put together a well-structured technical specification, which you then need to review, correct, or simply approve right away. Why is a technical specification important at all? I've worked with a huge number of clients, and honestly, many of them don't understand this and simply don't want to create these documents. Yes, it takes a couple of days, maybe even a week. It's a huge amount of time and a lot of writing. But why is it still important, and why do I insist on doing it whenever someone new comes to me for development? First of all, it helps keep everything within budget. Of course, you might want the first, the third, the 10th feature, and so on. You might imagine having everything possible. But most likely you'll easily go beyond your available resources. Secondly, based on my experience and your wishes, I can create a description of a product that simply has a much higher chance of success. Because sometimes, let's be honest, not all of your wishes make sense, even if someone said otherwise during customer development interviews. And third, a technical specification allows us to agree on the work before it starts, so that later we don't have to figure out whether a task was actually in the spec, or if someone suddenly added it, or if someone suddenly removed something. Hi, Pasha. In short, this is a very, very important stage that absolutely cannot be skipped for any project. But there are also studios where the technical specification is the first stage, for which you often have to pay several $1,000s and which can take up to a month. You definitely don't need that. That kind of thing is done for corporate clients. Such technical specifications are often 100 pages or more and are written in technical language that you simply won't understand. You'll sign it without reading, and that way you'll be tied to working specifically with that studio. Think about the last time you agreed to a user agreement in a game or an app. Did you actually read it? I think the answer is pretty obvious. So, you won't read it here either. And blindly signing something is honestly just foolish. I think we all understand that. Because that way you'll end up paying for every change and get stuck with the technical specification they write for you. There might not be the mechanics you wanted, or there could be extra mechanics you didn't want, which you'll have to pay for. Or maybe the deadline and budget just don't work for you. In short, reach out to developers who will write a technical specification for you that's concise, to the point, and in language you can understand. That's really important. Of course, when corporate clients or government customers come to me, the technical specification for them is huge. All company policies are taken into account, all the specifics, the jurisdiction, all the regulations, and the result is a massive technical specification, 10, 50, 100 or more pages long. But for everyone else, I make the technical specification as simple, clear, and to the point as possible. But usually after the technical specification, an app mockup is created. Important. This is not a design, it's just a prototype where arrows and various blocks, without any real design, show the user's path and sketch out the layout so you can understand what the app will look like and how the user will interact with it. And maybe something gets changed, added, or removed. At this stage, it's important to coordinate the work. That means you need to be present here to watch, observe, approve, or make corrections, so that later you don't have to make these same changes to the finished graphics or design, which would cost you more money and time. But only after the creation and approval of the technical specification and the application mockup is the actual design, the real graphics for your project created. This also needs to be approved before moving on to the next stage of development. And once the design is approved and the technical specification is written, you can relax and not have to be so deeply involved in the process anymore. Now everything falls on the shoulders of the developers, who will have to transfer this design from the mockup, from Figma, into code. But now let's talk about how much it actually costs to develop an application in reality. Why do some charge more while others are significantly cheaper? Here, in fact, everything is very, very simple and depends on the different teams. Some guy from a freelance site can make you a Bybit exchange for $300. And some professional large team might charge you $10,000 for your simple recipe app. So how much should you actually pay for app development? And are you sure you won't get scammed by slick salespeople? You can check for yourself to verify my words by going to platforms like Headhunter or HHRU, where developers with experience, say middle plus or senior, on average earn $3,000 to $4,000 a month. And designers on average make about $1,500 to $2,000. Of course, I'm talking about full-time positions here, not about project-based work. So if someone offers to do the design, write the technical specification, develop the app, and even dance for you all for $500, well, run away from that kind of developer. You shouldn't expect anything good from them, but if you're seriously considering development, whether it's a mobile app, a Telegram game, or a smart contract, but don't know where to start or how to properly and correctly write a technical specification, then you'll find a link to my group, my contact, and my email in the description below this video. When you contact IT studios, make sure they have these people on their team. Often they'll tell you that even for your simple project, a whole crowd of developers will be working on it, comparable to the population of some village. And for that, they'll quote you a price, starting at $100,000. Of course, if you really work on the project for a year or more, then such a price tag is basically realistic. However, I don't think you're building some kind of AI for a spaceship or your own crypto exchange. Most likely, you want to develop an app for, say, investments, scheduling, a wallet, or even a Telegram game. On the screen, you can see a small selection of projects along with their costs. Based on these, you can realistically assess whether the budget you're being offered is reasonable. The cost of IT development ranges from $4,000 up to $100,000, and that's normal if you're approaching a team with experience. For example, in my team, just the lead developer alone has 24 years of experience in web development, having worked in fintech, Google, and other major companies. That's why I can't take on a project for $1,000. After all, experience is something you have to pay for. So you've completed the project, tested it, and are already ready to launch advertising. Stop. First, send out a mailing to those people who left their contact information or showed interest at the initial stage. They can give you real feedback and compare their expectations with what they actually receive. Additionally, try conducting a couple of customer development interviews, but this time with different people. This will help you understand whether you actually launched the right product, and after that, advertising, tracking metrics, and making updates. This is usually the job of a product manager. For example, someone like me. For a separate fee, such a person analyzes how your app is performing, reviews the metrics, checks what users are complaining about and what actually works. And accordingly, someone needs to implement these changes. I once again strongly recommend making changes, updates, and ordering project support from the people who originally built it. No developer, believe me, likes working with someone else's code, especially if there's no documentation for it. Usually a separate fee is charged for this, so that time can be spent studying the code base, understanding how everything works, and how to make changes. That's why in my studio, we work with some clients for months, sometimes even years. But what if you don't have a budget? Finish and create the application. For example, you have an idea or just a desire to develop something, but you don't have extra funds for implementation. Then it's the same process, but you do everything strictly on your own. Put together a presentation or a landing page on Tilda. That's a free website builder. After that, conduct customer development interviews. This will also be free for you. You can develop an application using builders if you have zero programming experience. For example, use Ladderflow or Unity Engine if you're making a game. Yes, the quality will be lower and the optimization won't be as good as if you hired a team. But you'll save money. But if your app starts generating profit, don't put off going to a studio or a team who can build the app from scratch. The longer you delay, the higher the chance that your truly brilliant IT product won't be able to adequately handle the increasing load, or your valuable users will simply get bored and disengaged, and you'll quickly lose your entire client base. A studio is the logical next step. In general, launching an IT product is a journey. It might be difficult, but it's definitely worth trying. Just don't start it with rose-colored glasses. Start with your head. Follow my advice from this video and you'll learn how to launch successful IT products. In fact, not just IT products, but anything. But if you need a team that can develop your project, message me directly using the link in the description. We'll discuss your project, set up a call, and can get started on development. Don't forget to subscribe to my Telegram group as well. And good luck to everyone.